So what I'm going to do today is I'll tell you where I'm from, what we do, and which company I come from. But I'll mostly talk about generally the kinds of education that you guys are going to look for to give people. I am more passionate about how do you develop talent. I came here about 2.5 years ago, and since then in our company, we've been hiring folks. And a lot of credit to you guys. We've hired good talent, but there are times that we spend a lot of energy, like, I don't know, we have to go through 30-odd people, and then we find a guy that suits our job profile. And what I found throughout interviewing a whole bunch of guys is it seems that students have a different kind of maybe curriculum that they come through and a different process of education that they go through. And I'll generally tell you what I think the education kind of need to be, or the kind of thought process that we need to evolve to, given where we are. So first and foremost, I come from Dell Technologies. Dell Technologies is the newest company that got formed a couple of years ago by merging Dell, that you guys know about, Dell Computers, and EMC organization. And these are all the brands that we know. So you can tell that we work in consumer market with laptops. Dell EMC is big in storage area, server market. Pivotal is our cloud, everything about cloud, entire industry 4.0 and a cusp of 3.0. Everything is done at Pivotal. RSA and SecureWorks is our security divisions. So they are a big brand in security. Everybody who's got the VPN token ID that you guys use, that comes from RSA. VirtuStream is our cloud, which is very similar to AWS or Google Cloud, but it is very specific to a on-prem cloud. And VMware, I think somebody from VMware is here to talk about that as well. That is one of our brands. You obviously know, the fastest and the biggest virtual software company that we have. The reason I'm telling you this is what we believe in at Dell Technologies. Most of the technology that we develop is for driving human progress. And the concept of driving human progress should tell you that we have to think a little bit outside the box. We cannot come through a particular, a rigid vocational curriculum that teaches you how to come up with technology that drives human progress. The amount of different areas of work that we do, that tells us that that is the kind of innovation we require at our company. And that's why I said that we go through a lot of different interviews, and we find barely about 2 to 5% of people that we hire. And that's why I wanted to kind of use this opportunity. When these guys told me that it's about Industry 4.0, I figured we'll talk about how to develop a sort of a thinking, or how to get people to think differently than having to them just go through the theory and so general education system that you go through. And nothing wrong with what we do. I went through that. I don't find anything wrong. I just want you to kind of get a perspective on where the industry is evolving and what kind of changes we should probably interject in our system. Okay? So with that, I'll start with who would have thought. One of the things you want to think about is the world's most valued retailer that has no inventory. Can you guys know who that is? Any one of you? Say that again? Now we're talking about retailer. Now Amazon keeps inventory. That's right, somebody said it, Alibaba. Now, if we were working in our older knowledge, I don't think anybody could come up with a knowledge or an idea that says, I am going to build a retailer company with no inventory. Even Walmart, who is the biggest retailer, brick and mortar retailer, does not do that, right? That requires a different kind of thinking. The second thing, world's largest taxi company that owns no vehicles, and somebody said it, right? Uber. Again, a completely different thought process. So people who are thinking these things, people who are founding these companies and hiring people to do that, they have a different way of thinking. And there's a reason why they think differently, right? Another example, most popular media owner that creates no content, zero content. Facebook. Somebody over there said it. Every other media owner, you take it from Time Warner to Wall Street to anybody, you will see that they create media. This is the only company that is the most popular media owner in the world, but does not create any of its own content, right? And these are multi-billion-dollar companies, right? So to do things like this and to innovate, you need a little more than what we have gone through in our general education system. So with that, I'll go to this industry revolutions. I think this is hopefully is not news to many of you. This is pretty much standard. What's our first revolution? That's when we first invented the concept of doing mechanics. Second, this is where I want to kind of spend a little time. What we did was we created water power, steam powers, we did mechanization. Then we decided, okay, well, how do I convert that into mass production so that everybody can use it, right? Now, when we started doing that, there's one other thing we did. We went and standardized all of our manufacturing processes, right? This was the so-called biggest industrial revolution of our times. Everything changed. We've got the concept of assembly line, entire manufacturing force, and to create mass production, we need mass people, a lot of people, and they need to do the same thing over and over and over, because if they don't do that, I can't do mass production of the same technology. That makes sense? And so we started standardizing our education system. You will find if you go back early 1900s or even before that, education system wasn't the way it is today. This started around the time of our industrial revolution. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to create people, we wanted to create students that have the knowledge about our industry that can replicate things faster. That is how India got industrialized. You know, some particular developed nation came up with a mechanism they want to transfer to entire world. We created mass production, right? That's where our education system started. So we have a set way of creating a standardized way of teaching things. What we have to look for is when we started in the third industrial revolution, we've got automation. Computer is nothing but a system for automation. So we had people who did mass production. Then we realized, you know what? Somebody talked about human biases. Humans generally tend to make mistakes. We're not robots. And so we started figuring out, how do I do automation? What will allow me to make the same thing over and over with less errors, less things, and still create a perfect product? Welcome to automation. That's when the whole entire computer industry was born. That's why computers started, and then from then on, it kind of have been ballooned into all kinds of different things. The fourth evolution, obviously, you guys know, is meeting the whole virtual aspect and the physical aspect. We'll talk about what that is, but I think the important thing about it is we have to understand what we have done to our education system and what we need to change, right? By doing that, what we have done is we have taught every one of us from childhood, even I myself have learned the same way. We basically are taught a certain thing, and in the process, we forget to question things, right? We're told how to do things, and so we don't question. Everybody taught us how to write A, how to write 1, 2, 3, how to do multiplications, and we just remember all of those things, and slowly and gradually, till the end of our engineering graduation, we forget to question. The entire concept of curiosity is driven out of our minds, and that is why we cannot really think outside the box, right? What happens is we end up starting to think the same thing, the theories that we have been taught. We're not practically utilizing it. Everybody of us have gone through education of mathematics. We've learned geometry. We've learned all kinds of different centrifugal forces, Z transforms. How many of us really know how to apply that in real world? You take any college student and ask him, I want to build a road that turns. How many of them are going to think about the banking angle? How many of them are going to think about the centrifugal force that's required to tilt the angle? They're not. That's because they cannot understand how do I apply that theory into reality. What they are taught is how do I score marks, how do I score numbers using what I'm taught so that I can get to the next level, because that's the goal we've told them. We're not actually teaching them what's the use of this, right? In the process, we've forgotten about it just because we needed that kind of knowledge to build where we are today. But we have built that now, so we need to kind of rethink our thought process, okay? So I'm going to talk about this guy. I don't know how many of you know George Land. He's really passionate, Nobel laureate. He passed away, I think, a couple of years ago. But he was given a challenge. NASA, during their times to go to moon, were looking for very innovative engineers. They needed to find people who can think differently so that we can build different technology. And a lot of folks in the US had been trying to do that. This guy devised a mechanism that allows you to test and gives you some kind of metric that measures the innovativeness of a person, right? And using that innovation, then you hire those people. They wanted a way of, I'm interviewing so many people, how do I find the right guys? And so he's a psychologist by profession. What I wanted to show you here is they tested 1,600 groups of children, the same children. The reason he did that was they did this for NASA engineering, but then later they decided, you know what, let's go out and try this on children. Just out of, he's a psychologist, so that's what they wanted to kind of try out. The results were amazing. They tested 5-year-old. How much percentage of people or children you think were creative? This was to try and figure out, are the engineers creative or is the person creative or innovative? What do you guys think? Can somebody guess what's the number or what's the percentage that a child is creative at the age of 5-year-old? Say that again. Pick a number. 80%? 90%? 98%. Right? I'll give you another. The same 1,600 children, when they grew to 10 years, they retested them. What does that tell you? We're losing creativity as we're growing. And you can try this at home. I'll give you an example. Take a piece of paper, draw any kind of modern art or spaghetti art that you can think of, show it to kids that are 5 years old or 3 years old, and give them about a minute or 30 seconds, ask them to guess what they see, non-stop. And then show the same thing to like maybe 15-year-old kids and ask them to guess non-stop within 1 minute what they think. I almost guarantee you'll be surprised. You'll find that the 3-year-old and 5-year-old kids will give you like 20 different things that they can see, whereas the 15-year-old kids probably come up with like 4, 5 at most. Reason is, we're trained. We're starting to look at things, I don't know, this is not that, that's not what I've seen ever. But a 3-year-old guy doesn't have any thought. There is no experience that he's been taught. So he's like, oh, that's a flying butter. Hold on, flying butter? Our cognitive mind is going to stop that thought person and say, there is no such a thing as flying butter. I'll be idiot to say that. So we won't speak up, right? That not speaking up and holding ourselves back is going to stop us from being creative. Okay? This should be 15 years old, 12%. So at same 1,600 children at 15 years old, retested, their creativity dropped to 12%. They tried to do this over 1 million adults at an average age of 31 years. Guess what their creativity would have been? Well, you have to be a little kind, It's 2%. We're not that bad. We're not that bad, right? So 2%, right? That doesn't mean that we're not creative. All that means is we have to find a way to unblock that creativity, right? If you guys, whoever study in biology or a little interested in psychology, you go look at your brain and you'll find there's a frontal lobe that does some cognitive analysis called higher cognition and so on and so forth. That's the guy that stops us from doing things. That's what we're learning every day, right? That guy will tell us, hey, no, I think people are going to not respect you if you say this. People are going to probably think you're an idiot when you say this. People are going to say, you know what, that whole judgmental aspect will stop us from thinking, and slowly and gradually, the entire curiosity is driven out of our system. It's there, it's just kind of driven out in the sense that we stop ourselves. You aren't thinking, and if you're not thinking, you're not going to come up with Ubers, or you're not going to be able to come up with Alibabas or Facebooks or any other new technologies that we're building. And certainly with machine learning and AI, you need a lot of different thinking. We're not going to be able to do, with the same thought process, we're not going to build something else. We've got to have a completely orthogonal thinking, okay? And that's why I said that at Dell Technologies, we have so much variety of things that we do. We are an essential infrastructure company that provides the backbone of all of these things that happens in the world. And the kind of research and creativity that you need, is we're always looking for that because we need to build products to drive human progress, right? So this is my guess. How might we have arrived here? I think we might have arrived here because our schooling days. Like I said, I think our schools have taught us a certain way of doing things, and we've kind of got there. Our societal behavior, our society or the social norms that we live in, right? An example that I can give you is if you ask somebody to do a question, there are very few people that will raise their hand and say something. They have an opinion, but they won't because they're afraid that somebody's going to judge them, right? And during our schooling process, I think the other way to think about it is if you guys can create a platform during their schooling, make sure that they are encouraged, create a platform where they can ask questions, their curiosity is sort of encouraged. No matter it's right or wrong, every idea is a great idea. They will open up. They will start thinking differently, and that thinking is very, very important to our business, right? To the entire world as we go to Industry 4.0, because the whole system is going to drastically change. I mean, you look at just the Industrial Revolution and 3.0, when I give this new gadgets of iPhones and whatnot to even to my parents, forget my grandparents, it's hard for them to use that, right? Because they don't understand technology very well. There's a huge gap that we've created because we've ran so fast, and the 4.0 is going to completely revolutionize all of that stuff. And we need to make sure that we're rethinking and we're creating thought processes and thinking where innovation can really thrive. Okay? I'll give you this quote from Hal Gregerson. Hal is a MIT professor at MIT, Massachusetts. And one of the things he said I thought was very appropriate. He basically mentioned that answers are more valued than the inquisitive thought or the curiosity. What that means is that we're always incentivizing the answers and not the creative thinking, constantly. If the guy says something, we're not doing that, right? We're always incentivizing him, hey, the answer has to be what was given to you in theory book. And if that's not true, then hey, your answer is wrong. Well, no, he just has a different thought process. People who say parrot is black, you're going to first question him, this guy's gone mad. Because everybody's used to saying, oh, parrots are probably yellow, greenish kind of thing, right? That's not true. There could be another one, right? And so the thought process of having an open mind is very important. So the two more things that I'd like to leave with you. How many of you heard about 9-dot puzzle? This is something that I think we've done this for ages, right? Since we were kids. You guys all heard about the 9-dot puzzle? Yep. You guys know how to solve this? You know how to solve this? Most of you will do this. Unless you've searched in Google and found an answer. But if you haven't, I guarantee you, you will do this. There's a reason why we're doing this. It says, connect all the dots using 4 straight lines without retracing a line and lifting your pencil. What's a line? What have we learned throughout our schooling career? What's a line? Straight thing between 2 dots. You will stop at that dot just because your mental thing does not allow you to go beyond that dot because the line ends. Right? The answer lies in something like this. Right there. Because a line does not have to end at the dot. Right? Now that's in 4 lines. Do you think you can do this in less than 4 lines? How many of you think you can do this in less than 4 lines? None? You can do this in 1 line. But for that, you have to really open your mind and think differently. Right? That's the kind of creative thinking I'm talking about. You've got to have a different thought process. If you don't, you're not going to change the industry and you're not going to survive through. And there was a report I read I believe from Aspiring Minds in India that came up just a month ago or something. And 8 out of 10 engineers in India are unemployable. That's the data that they showed, not my data. That's something that they found. Not only that, we looked at the IT industry, and the Aspiring Minds did their surveys, and I don't know the exact numbers, how many people they surveyed, but they found that we are in India, the engineers are almost 4 times less likely to write better code than their counterparts in developed nations. So we teach them all kinds of computer programming and whatnot in the IT industry. Why are they 4 times lesser? Right? There is a process of education that we have to learn. Okay? So I want to leave you with this. Have an open mind and help everybody else around you to try and have an open mind. Because if you don't have an open mind, you will not let others have an open mind. And trust me, that doesn't apply just at your schools. I think if you start that even in your personal life, it will automatically translate. And believe me, that we do that at work as well. And when folks come for interviewing, when we hire from schools and colleges, that is one of the things that we look for. Because we need talent, we need people who can think differently. If they all can think like us, then we've got an assembly line, right? That's not what we're here for. We're here to innovate and creative, and Dell Technologies, we are a product company. That's what we do better at, right? So since this is an audience about education and academia, I figured that this would be something that that would fit right for you guys. This is one of my passionate aspects of how I live my life, how I do my things, because I studied here, I studied abroad as well. Last but not least, a quote from Albert Einstein. I'll leave you with that. Far more important is imagination than the knowledge itself. And we don't want to be in the process of just injecting knowledge after knowledge to folks. Let them have some imagination within the knowledge they have. All right? Thank you, guys.